Grab your passport and join me on a trip around the world to meet some of the strangest, most hilarious animals you've maybe never heard of. In Japan, we're venturing into the deep ocean to meet the Japanese spider crab. A creature so bizarre it looks like a crab, a spider, and a horror movie monster, all fused into one. Found along Japan's Pacific coast, this giant crustacean roams the sandy and rocky seafloor, where its absurdly long legs can stretch up to 12 feet, 3.6 meters, making it the NBA player of the crab world. Despite its monstrous size and armored exoskeleton, this ancient-looking creature isn't exactly built for speed. It mostly lounges around, scavenging for food like decaying fish, shellfish, and algae. When it's time to spawn, adult crabs migrate to shallower waters, around 160 feet, 50 meters deep, where they become more vulnerable to predators. While their tough shells protect them from most threats, hungry octopuses and trawling nets pose serious dangers, especially when the crabs molt and temporarily lose their protective armor. Oh, and did I mention these things can live for over 100 years? That's right. Some of them have been scuttling around since before your grandparents were even born. Let's head to Indonesia, where we find a pig that looks like it escaped from a medieval fantasy movie, the Babirusa. At first glance, you might think, oh, just another wild pig. But then you see its tusks, and that's where things get weird. Unlike normal boars, whose tusks grow outward, the Babirusa upper tusks curve backwards, straight into its own skull. Yep, if they grow too long, they can literally stab themselves in the head. But that's not all. These pigs stand on their back legs when fighting, almost like they're trying to box each other. So, picture a pig with self-destructive tusks, standing like a kangaroo and throwing punches. And tell me that's not one of the most absurd things you've ever heard. Let's hop over to India, where we meet an animal that looks like a balloon that lost half its air, the Indian purple frog. This thing is short, round, and permanently grumpy looking. It spends almost its entire life buried underground, only coming up for about 2 weeks per year. Just long enough to mate, yell at the world, and then disappear again like a hermit with commitment issues. Oh, and its call. It sounds like a rubber chicken being aggressively squeezed. Scientists say it's supposed to attract mates, but honestly, it just sounds like someone pranking the entire rainforest. Let's visit Southeast Asia, where we meet a bird that looks like it belongs in a cartoon, the helmeted hornbill. This bird has a massive, bony helmet on its head, which it uses for one thing and one thing only, flying full speed into other birds. That's right, when two males want to show dominance, they headbutt each other in midair, like feathered, high-speed wrecking balls. If that's not weird enough, the helmeted hornbill has a call that sounds like a maniacal, evil villain laughing. Imagine hiking in the jungle and suddenly you hear a loud, unhinged cackle from above. Congratulations, you've just been judged by a bird. Let's go to the deserts of Mongolia, where we'll find one of the most chaotic rodents on the planet, the Jerboa. Imagine a mouse, but with kangaroo legs and massive Dumbo ears. It hops around the desert at lightning speed, looking like someone pressed fast forward on a tiny cartoon rabbit. And get this, it can leap 10 times its own body length. That's like a human jumping over a school bus. But despite being a ninja-level jumper, the Jerboa has zero control over where it lands. It just launches itself in random directions, hoping for the best. It's the animal kingdom's equivalent of pressing every button in a video game and somehow still winning. Let's head to Australia, home to some of the strangest animals on Earth, including the thorny devil, a tiny but tough lizard that looks like it walks straight out of a fantasy novel. At just 8 inches, 20 centimeters long, The thorny devil is covered in spiky armor that makes it look like a walking cactus with legs. But despite its fearsome appearance, it's completely harmless, unless you're an ant. This little desert dweller eats thousands of ants a day, using its sticky tongue like a conveyor belt for tiny snacks. Here's where things get weird. The thorny devil has a false head on the back of its neck, a weird knobby lump that it uses to trick predators. If a hungry bird or dingo comes looking for a meal, the lizard tucks its real head down and presents the fake one instead, basically saying, "Bite this, not me." Oh, and the best part, it drinks water through its skin. Tiny grooves all over its body channel moisture straight to its mouth, meaning it can literally sip morning dew through its feet. If that's not one of the strangest survival tricks in nature, I don't know what is. Let's visit East Africa, where we meet the Gerenuk, an antelope that looks like it's half giraffe, half deer, and entirely confused. Unlike normal antelopes that gracefully gallop across the savanna, the Gerenuk prefers to stand on its hind legs like a goat in a ballet class. This gangly creature has an insanely long neck and tiny head, making it look like it stretched itself out in Photoshop and then regretted it. The Gerenuk's entire personality revolves around standing weirdly and nibbling leaves from trees, refusing to eat grass like its fellow antelopes. It's like the picky eater of the animal kingdom, just tall, awkward, and completely uninterested in what everyone else is doing. Let's head to Southeast Asia, where we find an insect that looks like a delicate flower, but has the soul of a cold-blooded killer, the Malaysian orchid mantis. This mantis is so good at disguise that it literally looks like a blooming orchid, but instead of just sitting there looking pretty, it murders anything that gets too close. Bees, butterflies, and other insects come over thinking, "Oh wow, what a lovely flower," and then, bam, they're on the menu. Even creepier, it can change color to match different types of flowers, making it the world's most stylish little assassin. Time to head to the rivers of South America, where we find a fish that's going to haunt your dreams, the Pacu fish. At first glance, it looks like an innocent fish, until it opens its mouth and boom, perfectly human-like teeth. Not sharp shark-style teeth, actual human-like molars. It's like looking at a fish that somehow stole someone's dentures. Even creepier, locals sometimes call them ball cutters because, well, fishermen in certain regions strongly advise men not to swim near them. I'll let you connect the dots on that one. Now, let's take a quick detour deep into the ocean near Australia, where we meet an animal that looks like it just got some really bad news, the blobfish. In its natural deep-sea habitat, the blobfish looks pretty normal. But when it gets pulled to the surface, it deflates into a sad, gelatinous lump with a permanent frown. It's like if a grumpy old man melted in the sun. But don't be fooled, this guy is living the dream, while other fish swim around, constantly working for food. The blobfish just floats around doing nothing, waiting for food to come to it. Truly an icon. Heading to Argentina, we find an animal that looks like a tiny, pink, sentient croissant, the pink fairy armadillo. This little guy is barely 6 inches long, 15 centimeters, and spends most of its life buried underground, using its ridiculously tiny hands to swim through the dirt like it's made of water. But when it does pop up, it looks like someone glued a raw chicken nugget to a turtle shell. This tiny, blushing burrito is so shy, scientists barely ever see them. They live like secret underground celebrities, avoiding the paparazzi at all costs. Let's jet over to Africa, where we meet a bird that looks like it just walked out of a high-fashion runway, the secretary bird. This bird is 4 feet tall, with long, fabulous legs, and it hunts snakes by literally stomping them to death. Imagine wearing ridiculous heels, strutting through the savannah, and then curb stomping a cobra. That's the secretary bird's daily routine. Oh, and they give side-eye like no other animal. If you ever see one, you'll instantly feel like it's judging you. There you have it. The world is full of weird, hilarious creatures that make traveling even more exciting. So, next time you're out exploring the world, keep an eye out. You might just come across a bizarre-looking creature.